Life today is fundamentally different from the past. Look around for a second. Does your mind ever truly get a quiet room to breathe? Notifications, competition, endless comparison, information overload. Modern life isn't just busy. It's a completely different operating system than the one your grandparents ran. And here's the uncomfortable question. Are you still using old survival tools for a new reality? In physics, when conditions change, systems either adapt or break. The same principle applies to your inner world. The speed of life today doesn't merely test your schedule. It tests your attention, your nervous system, your identity, your ability to choose what becomes real for you. So why do some people thrive, creating momentum, luck, and clarity, while others feel stuck in mental noise? That difference is not random. And in what follows, we'll unpack the hidden mechanism behind it. Adaptation is no longer optional. Here's a truth most people resist. The world will not slow down to match your comfort zone. Complexity, uncertainty, and rapid change are not temporary phases. They are the new baseline. And in every complex system studied by physics, biology, or cybernetics, one rule remains constant. Systems that fail to adapt collapse under pressure. So, ask yourself honestly, are you reacting to life, or are you equipped to navigate it? Mental stress, emotional exhaustion, and constant distraction are not personal failures. They are symptoms of outdated inner tools. You are not overwhelmed because you are weak. You are overwhelmed because no one taught you how to manage attention, emotion, and energy in a high-frequency environment. Adaptation today is not about working harder. It's about operating differently, learning how to stabilize your inner state while the external world accelerates. And that shift changes everything. If this resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and like this video. These insights build step by step, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. The knowledge of communicating with the universe is ancient. What if the idea of communicating with the universe is not a modern trend, but a forgotten science? Long before social media slogans and simplified manifesting techniques, ancient thinkers were already studying the mechanics of reality. Greek philosophers observed order beneath chaos. Eastern masters explored consciousness as a creative force. Shamans, alchemists, and mystics mapped invisible laws long before instruments could measure them. Here's the question most people never ask. Why did radically different civilizations, separated by geography and time, reach similar conclusions about reality? Because they were not guessing, they were observing patterns. They noticed that intention influenced outcomes, that inner states shaped external events, and that attention behaved like a form of energy. What we now describe with terms like fields, resonance, and frequency was once expressed through symbols and metaphors. Different language, same mechanics. And this ancient understanding is far more relevant today than ever before. Ancient wisdom must be adapted to the modern world. Ancient wisdom is powerful, but here's the critical mistake many people make. They try to apply it without updating the interface. Practices that worked in silent monasteries, small tribes, or slow agricultural societies were never designed for a world of constant alerts, artificial urgency, and non-stop mental stimulation. And that mismatch creates frustration. Can a technique designed for stillness survive in a noisy system without modification? In physics, tools must match the scale and environment of the experiment. The same applies to consciousness. Today, your mind is exposed to more information in a single day than a medieval human processed in a lifetime. That changes how attention fragments, how emotion spikes, and how intention leaks. Modern co-creation requires precision, methods to cut through noise, stabilize focus, and direct energy deliberately. The principles remain timeless, but the application must evolve. Otherwise, wisdom becomes theory instead of transformation. Modern humans have greater potential than past generations. Here's a provocative question. What if you have more creative power than any human who ever lived before you? Not because you are special, but because the environment itself has changed. In physics, potential is always contextual. It depends on available energy, connectivity, and amplification mechanisms. And today, those factors are unprecedented. One focused individual can now influence millions, shift markets, build abundance, or transmit ideas globally in real time. That was impossible even a century ago. But here's the paradox. While external power has expanded, internal mastery has not kept pace. Many people have access to immense leverage, but lack the mental and emotional stability to use it consciously. This is why some rise rapidly while others feel overwhelmed by the same tools. The difference is not intelligence or luck, it's coherence. When attention, emotion, and intention align, modern systems amplify results exponentially. And learning to harness that amplification is no longer optional, it's essential. Core principle: the universe reflects consciousness. What if reality is not something happening to you, but something responding from you? In quantum physics, the observer is never neutral. Observation affects outcomes. Measurement collapses probability into experience. And while this principle is often misunderstood, its implication is profound. Consciousness participates in reality. The universe behaves less like a fixed structure and more like a responsive system. It mirrors patterns of attention, expectation, and emotional charge. This is why two people can live in the same city, face similar circumstances, and yet experience entirely different realities. They are not accessing the same version of the world. What is your consciousness broadcasting right now? Your dominant focus doesn't just interpret events, it selects them. Experiences compete for your attention, and the ones you energize become stable, recurring, and familiar. This is not mysticism. It's feedback. And once you understand that feedback loop, everything you call reality begins to look very different. The universe communicates through energy, not language. Have you ever said all the right words, yet nothing changed? That's because the universe doesn't speak your language. It reads your signal. In physics, systems respond to energy, frequency, and resonance, not vocabulary. And reality operates the same way. Words are symbolic. Emotion is measurable. You can declare abundance all day long, but if your emotional state carries tension, doubt, or urgency, that vibration becomes the true message. The universe doesn't evaluate intentions intellectually. It responds to coherence or the lack of it. This explains why unconscious emotional patterns often override conscious affirmations. So, here's the key question. What are you feeling when you think about what you want? Emotion is the carrier wave. It tells reality whether something is welcome, resisted, or conflicted. Once you grasp this, manifestation stops being about asking correctly and starts being about aligning energetically. And that distinction changes everything. Emotional reactions signal consent. This may challenge everything you've been taught. The universe does not judge your emotions, it obeys them. Every emotional reaction you generate functions like a confirmation signal. Excitement, frustration, fear, enthusiasm, each one communicates the same underlying message. Yes, Give me more of this pattern. In energetic systems, reaction equals engagement. When you emotionally react, you feed a feedback loop. The universe doesn't differentiate between what you label as positive or negative. It only registers intensity and repetition. This is why people often experience recurring situations they claim to dislike. The emotional charge keeps the signal active. So, pause and ask yourself, what are you emotionally agreeing to on a daily basis? Your reactions are not innocent, they are creative. The moment you stop reacting automatically, you interrupt the loop. And in that interruption lies freedom. Mastering emotion is not suppression, it's conscious consent. The law of attraction operates through attention. Attention is not passive. In physics, energy flows where focus is directed. The same rule governs your lived experience. Whatever consistently receives your attention begins to organize itself into something solid, familiar, and recurring. This is the real engine behind what people call the law of attraction. Here's the uncomfortable question. What are you rehearsing with your attention every day? Problems? Lack? Conflict? Or growth, opportunity, and expansion? Attention does not evaluate meaning. It amplifies structure. When you focus on what you don't want, you're still feeding it energy. And energy, once supplied, must express itself. This explains why ignoring certain patterns causes them to weaken, while obsessing over them makes them louder. Attention is nourishment. Remove it, and the structure dissolves. Direct it deliberately, and new patterns stabilize. The law is neutral, precise, and relentless. Once you understand that, attention becomes your most powerful creative instrument. Thoughts are neutral until energized by attention. Most people believe their thoughts control them. In reality, thoughts are inert until you power them. Think of a thought as a dormant particle, present, but inactive. It gains momentum only when attention attaches to it. Without attention, a thought fades naturally, like a wave losing amplitude. So, here's a critical question. Are your thoughts truly powerful, or are you the one empowering them? The mind generates thousands of ideas daily, many contradictories, many meaningless. The ones that shape your life are not the loudest, but the ones you repeatedly energize. Attention is the switch. When you disengage from a thought, without fighting it, judging it, or analyzing it, you remove its fuel. And without fuel, it collapses. This is why resistance often strengthens mental loops, while calm disengagement dissolves them. Understanding this single mechanism restores authority to where it belongs, not in the thought, but in the one who chooses where attention rests. What follows are the 5 steps to communicate with the universe. Step 1. Master your attention. If there is one skill that determines everything else, it is this: the ability to command your attention. Attention is not just focus. It is creative power in its raw form. In every energetic system, what is amplified becomes dominant, and attention is the amplifier. Most people believe they are directing their lives, yet their attention is constantly hijacked by worries, memories, comparisons, and external demands. So, ask yourself, who is really in control of your attention right now? Because whatever holds, it is shaping your reality in real time. Mastery does not mean forcing focus or suppressing distraction. It means becoming aware of where attention goes and choosing when to engage and when to withdraw. The moment you reclaim attention, you reclaim energy. And when energy is no longer leaking into unconscious patterns, it becomes available for deliberate creation. This is the foundation. Without it, every other technique collapses. Selective focus is essential. Mastering attention is not about focusing on everything, it's about choosing what deserves focus at all. In complex systems, selective filtering is what prevents overload. Your mind works the same way. Without conscious selection, attention scatters, energy fragments, and creation becomes accidental. Here's the question few people dare to ask. What are you allowing into your mental field simply by habit? News cycles, repetitive conversations, internal complaints, none of these are neutral. Each one claims a portion of your creative bandwidth. And bandwidth, once consumed, cannot be used elsewhere. Selective focus means deciding in advance what you nourish and what you starve. It's not denial, it's prioritization. When attention is consistently directed toward chosen intentions, coherence forms. That coherence stabilizes outcomes. This is why disciplined focus feels powerful, while scattered attention feels exhausting. You don't need more effort. You need fewer, clearer points of engagement. Focus should be on growth, not problems. Most people try to solve problems by staring directly at them. But here's the paradox. What you focus on expands, even when your intention is to eliminate it. In energetic systems, attention does not carry judgment. It carries fuel. When problems become the center of focus, they gain structure, momentum, and persistence. So, ask yourself, what if the fastest way to dissolve a problem is not to analyze it, but to outgrow it? Growth operates on a higher frequency than lack. When attention shifts toward expansion, skills, opportunities, clarity, contribution, the system reorganizes. Problems lose relevance because the internal state that sustained them no longer exists. This doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means choosing the axis of evolution. In physics, systems don't fix instability by circling it. They move to a new level of organization. When your focus consistently orients toward growth, solutions emerge naturally, not through force, but through alignment. Reality is shaped by perceptual filters. Two people can witness the same event and walk away living in completely different worlds.
Why?
Because reality is not experienced directly. It is filtered. Your nervous system, beliefs, expectations, and emotional conditioning act like lenses, selecting what is amplified and what is dismissed. In physics, measurement depends on the instrument. In life, perception depends on the observer. So, consider this question. What if your current reality is not proof of limitation, but evidence of a filter you've been using unconsciously? Attention passes through these filters and organizes experience accordingly. Opportunity can look like threat. Silence can feel like emptiness. Change can be interpreted as loss or as expansion. The event does not decide meaning, the filter does. And when filters change, the same world presents different outcomes. Mastery begins when you realize you are not trapped by circumstances. You are interpreting them. Adjust the filter, and reality responds immediately. Awareness of attention multiplies creative power. Here's a subtle truth with massive impact. The moment you become aware of your attention, its power multiplies. Unconscious attention creates by default. Conscious attention creates by design. In physics, feedback systems change behavior the instant observation is introduced. Your inner world follows the same rule. Most people don't actually choose where their attention goes. It goes where habit, emotion, or external stimuli pull it. But awareness interrupts that automation. So, ask yourself, how often do you notice where your attention is before it shapes your mood, decisions, and outcomes? That single pause changes everything. When you observe attention drifting toward fear, comparison, or repetition, you gain a choice point. You don't need to fight the thought or suppress emotion. Simply seeing the direction of attention weakens its grip. With practice, redirection becomes natural. And that awareness alone dramatically increases your ability to co-create deliberately rather than accidentally. Step 2. Think and speak in the present moment. The universe does not operate on tomorrow, later, or someday. It responds only to now. In physics, all interaction happens in the present state of a system. The past is memory, the future is probability. Yet most people live mentally suspended between regret and anticipation, wondering why results feel delayed. So, here's the real question. How often do your words describe who you are becoming instead of who you are being? Language rooted in the future signals absence. It broadcasts that the desired state is not embodied yet, and the universe reflects that gap with precision. Creation is not about wishing, it's about synchronization. When thoughts, emotions, and language are anchored in the present, coherence forms. You begin to act, feel, and decide as the version of yourself aligned with the outcome. That alignment collapses distance. Reality doesn't need time, it needs presence. Future-oriented language delays manifestation. Pay close attention to how you speak about what you want. Phrases like one day, soon, I'm trying, or I will become seem harmless, but energetically, they carry a powerful signal of postponement. In any responsive system, language encodes state. When your words place fulfillment in the future, you are declaring its absence in the present. Ask yourself, what identity are you reinforcing every time you say not yet? The universe doesn't argue with your grammar, it mirrors your positioning. If your inner and outer dialogue consistently frames success as distant, reality complies by keeping it that way. This doesn't mean pretending or forcing belief. It means embodying alignment now, speaking from the state you're activating, not chasing. When language shifts from anticipation to presence, your nervous system reorganizes. Actions change. Perception sharpens. And manifestation accelerates, not because time moved faster, but because resistance dissolved. Manifestation is synchronization with existing potentials. Manifestation is often misunderstood as creating something out of nothing. In reality, physics tells a different story. The universe operates as a field of probabilities. Countless potential outcomes already exist, waiting to be selected. You are not inventing a new reality. You are tuning into one that already exists. Here's the deeper question. Which potential are you synchronized with right now? Your emotional state, beliefs, and habitual focus act like a tuning dial. When they align with a specific possibility, that version of reality becomes statistically dominant in your experience. This is why forcing results rarely works. Force creates resistance, and resistance breaks coherence. Synchronization, on the other hand, feels natural, almost inevitable. When your inner state matches the frequency of the outcome, actions flow, timing aligns, and opportunities appear without struggle. Manifestation is not effortful creation. It is precise alignment with what is already available in the field. Feeling precedes form. Before anything becomes visible, it is first felt. In physics, structure follows energy. In human experience, form follows emotion. Feeling is the bridge between thought and reality, the mechanism that turns an idea into a lived outcome. So, ask yourself, what does the reality you want actually feel like in your body? Not what it looks like on the surface, but the internal state it produces: relief, confidence, freedom, joy. When you generate that feeling now, you begin to inhabit the frequency of the outcome. Visualization is not about mental pictures alone. It's about sensory immersion. Sound, texture, emotion, these elements build a coherent internal environment, and coherence signals readiness. When the internal state stabilizes, the external world reorganizes to match it. This is why emotional embodiment accelerates results, while detached thinking stalls them. Reality follows the path already carved by feeling. Step 3. Practice intentional communication. Creation is not silent. It happens through communication, but not the kind most people think of. Every day, you are communicating on 3 levels at once, with others, with yourself, and with the universal field. The problem is that most of this communication is unconscious, reactive, and contradictory. What message are you sending when no one is listening? Your internal dialogue, your emotional reactions, and your habitual tone carry far more weight than spoken words. In energetic terms, communication equals connection. Whatever you consistently connect with begins to organize your experience. Intentional communication means choosing signals deliberately, aligning words, emotions, and expectations into a single coherent message. When communication becomes conscious, reality stops feeling random. Relationships shift. Opportunities respond. Resistance softens. You are no longer broadcasting confusion. You are transmitting clarity. And clarity, in any system, produces predictable results. Most communication is unconscious and reactive. Most people believe they are communicating intentionally, but in reality, they are reacting. Words slip out shaped by habit. Thoughts repeat without permission. Emotional responses fire before awareness catches up. And in any responsive system, reaction is still communication. It still sends a signal. Here's the question: if every reaction is a message, what are you constantly telling reality about yourself? Complaints, self-doubt, sarcasm, internal criticism. None of these are neutral. They reinforce patterns by repetition and emotional charge. The universe doesn't distinguish between conscious statements and automatic ones. It registers consistency. Reactive communication fragments energy. One part of you asks for change while another part broadcasts resistance. That incoherence creates delay, confusion, and mixed results. The shift begins when you slow down enough to notice what is being said through you, especially when you're tired, stressed, or emotionally triggered. Awareness turns reaction into choice. And choice is where conscious creation begins. Internal dialogue and cosmic dialogue must be filtered. Not every thought deserves your belief, and not every inner statement should be broadcast to the universe. Yet most people allow their internal dialogue to run unchecked, replaying limitations, rehearsing fears, and narrating worst-case scenarios as if they were facts. In energetic terms, this is unfiltered transmission. So, ask yourself, would you speak to a powerful intelligence the same way you speak to yourself in private? Because the universe receives both with equal clarity. Internal dialogue is not harmless background noise. It is ongoing instruction. When left unfiltered, it reinforces outdated identities and contradicts conscious intentions. Filtering does not mean suppressing thoughts or forcing positivity. It means choosing which messages are repeated and which are allowed to dissolve. You don't argue with every thought. You decide whether it represents the direction you're moving. When internal communication becomes intentional, cosmic communication becomes precise. And precision, in any system, produces clean results. Communication equals connection. Every form of communication creates a connection. In physics, Interaction establishes relationship. In life, whatever you communicate with internally or externally becomes part of your field. This is why the quality of your life reflects the quality of your connections, with yourself, with others, and with the larger system you call reality. Consider this. What are you repeatedly connecting to through your words and attention? Conversations filled with tension strengthen stress. Self-talk rooted in doubt reinforces limitation. Even imagined dialogues create energetic bonds. Connection doesn't require physical presence, it requires engagement. When communication becomes conscious, connection becomes selective. You begin to choose what you link yourself to emotionally and mentally. That choice reshapes your environment. Relationships either elevate or dissolve. Opportunities align with your internal tone. Life starts responding with coherence instead of resistance. Communication is never neutral. It is the bridge through which reality enters your experience, or stays out of it. Step 4. Listen to your internal guidance system. Logic is useful, but it is not your deepest guidance system. Logic analyzes the past and predicts risk. Your internal guidance system, however, operates through felt intelligence. In physics, sensitive instruments detect subtle signals long before visible change occurs. Your emotions work the same way. So, what are your feelings trying to tell you before your mind starts negotiating? Expansion, lightness, calm enthusiasm, these sensations indicate alignment. Contraction, heaviness, persistent tensions signal misalignment. This is not weakness or irrationality. It is feedback. Most people override this guidance because it doesn't always sound reasonable. But reason is often shaped by fear and conditioning. Internal guidance speaks softly, consistently, and without urgency. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. And as trust grows, decisions require less effort. You stop forcing outcomes and start following signals that were always there, quietly pointing the way. Emotional resonance indicates alignment. Alignment is not an abstract idea, it is felt. When you move in a direction that matches your deeper coherence, your body responds before your mind can explain it. There is a sense of openness, clarity, and subtle enthusiasm. Energy flows instead of resisting. This is emotional resonance. Ask yourself, which choices leave you feeling lighter, even if they challenge you? That lightness is not random. It is your internal system confirming alignment with a compatible potential. On the other hand, persistent heaviness, hesitation, or inner contraction are not signs of laziness or weakness. They are signals of misalignment. Fear-based decisions often sound logical, but they feel dense. Aligned decisions may feel uncertain, yet expansive. The difference matters. When you learn to read emotional resonance accurately, decision-making becomes simpler and more precise. You stop arguing with yourself and start cooperating with your own guidance system. And that cooperation accelerates everything. The ego speaks through fear and rationalization. The ego is not your enemy, but it is not your guide either. Its primary function is protection, not expansion. In physics, safety mechanisms resist change to preserve stability. The ego operates the same way. It speaks in fear-based logic, offering convincing reasons to stay where you are. Does this voice feel calm and clear, or urgent and defensive? Ego-driven thoughts often sound rational, but they carry tension. They explain why now is not the right time, why risk is unnecessary, why growth can wait. The logic may be sophisticated, but the energy is contracted. Your deeper essence communicates differently. It does not rush. It does not argue. It feels grounded, expansive, and quietly confident. Learning to distinguish these voices is essential. When fear dominates decision-making, life shrinks. When clarity leads, life expands. Discernment is not about silencing the ego, it's about not letting it drive. Trusting inner guidance strengthens intuitive intelligence. Intuition is not a mystical gift reserved for a few. It is a skill that develops through use and trust. In physics, feedback systems become more accurate the more they are calibrated. Your intuitive intelligence works the same way. Each time you listen and act on inner guidance, the signal sharpens. How often do you dismiss a quiet inner knowing because it can't be justified logically? When intuition is ignored, it weakens, not because it disappears, but because attention withdraws from it. When it is honored, even in small decisions, coherence builds. Trust does not mean blind leaps. It means testing alignment, observing results, and refining sensitivity. Over time, patterns emerge. You begin to recognize the difference between impulsive emotion and true guidance. Discernment grows. Life feels less forced, more fluid. When intuition is trusted, it evolves into a reliable internal compass, one that leads not just to safety, but to expansion. Step 5. Harness the power of repetition. Repetition is one of the most underestimated forces in reality creation. In physics, repeated signals strengthen pathways. In the brain, repetition wires neural circuits. In the subconscious, repetition becomes identity. What you repeat emotionally and consistently stops being information and starts becoming structure. What story are you rehearsing every day without realizing it? The subconscious does not analyze truth. It absorbs patterns. Whether something is real, imagined, or symbolic makes no difference. If it is repeated with emotion, it is accepted as instruction. This is why habits, self-definitions, and internal narratives shape outcomes so powerfully. Repetition is not about force. It's about familiarity. When a state becomes familiar, the nervous system treats it as normal, safe, and expected. And reality mirrors what feels normal to you. Mastering repetition means choosing what you allow to become automatic. Repetition programs reality through the subconscious. The subconscious is not just a mental storage system, it is a replication engine. It takes repeated input and expresses it as behavior, perception, and expectation. In physics, a system exposed to a constant signal eventually synchronizes with it. Your subconscious works the same way. What patterns have you trained your subconscious to expect? Effort before reward? Struggle before ease? Delay before success? These expectations didn't appear randomly. They were installed through repetition. And once installed, they quietly guide decisions, reactions, and opportunities without asking for permission. The subconscious does not distinguish between what you want and what you tolerate. It simply mirrors what has been reinforced emotionally over time. Change does not require force. It requires new conditioning. When repetition shifts, perception shifts. When perception shifts, choices change. And when choices change consistently, reality has no option but to follow. Words shape unconscious behavior and outcomes. Words are not passive descriptions of reality. They are instructions to the subconscious. Every label you use for yourself, every repeated phrase, every internal statement becomes a directive that shapes behavior beneath awareness. In physics, language encodes information. In human systems, it encodes identity. So, consider this carefully. How do you consistently describe yourself when no one is listening? capable or overwhelmed, lucky or struggling, expanding or stuck. These words don't remain abstract. They translate into posture, tone of voice, risk tolerance, and decision-making speed. Over time, they become self-fulfilling structures. The subconscious acts on familiarity. When certain words are repeated, the body begins to behave as if they are true. Opportunities are either noticed or ignored accordingly. This is why changing external circumstances without changing internal language rarely works. When words change at the root, behavior follows, and outcomes reorganize naturally, without force or strain. Repetition must be emotionally authentic. Repetition alone is not enough. Without emotional authenticity, repetition becomes empty noise. In physics, a signal without amplitude carries no power. Emotion is the amplitude. It is what gives repetition weight, coherence, and creative force. Ask yourself, do your repeated statements feel alive or mechanical? When words are repeated without belief, the nervous system resists. The subconscious senses inconsistency and rejects the input. This is why forced affirmations often fail. They lack emotional agreement. Authentic repetition emerges from resonance, not pressure. It doesn't feel like convincing. It feels like recognition. Even subtle belief, when repeated with sincerity, is far more powerful than exaggerated statements that feel false. The goal is not to overpower doubt, but to bypass it by choosing language that feels accessible now. When repetition aligns with genuine feeling, it penetrates deeply. And once the subconscious accepts a new pattern, reality adjusts automatically, quietly, steadily, and with precision. Shifting internal language changes external results. A single shift in internal language can redirect the entire trajectory of a life. This is not theory, it is observable mechanics. When the language you repeat internally changes, your nervous system recalibrates. Posture shifts, risk tolerance adjusts, attention reorganizes, and the external world responds to those subtle changes with surprising speed. What would change if you stopped narrating life as resistance and started describing it as movement? People often wait for circumstances to improve before changing their self-talk, but causality works in the opposite direction. Internal language leads, external results follow. Consider how replacing phrases of struggle with language of flow alters perception. Opportunities become visible. Timing improves. Luck appears to increase, not by magic, but by alignment. This is how small internal edits create large external consequences. When the story you tell yourself changes consistently, the world you experience has no choice but to reorganize around the new signal. The complete technique integrates all 5 steps. Here's where everything comes together. None of these principles work in isolation, not sustainably. Power emerges from integration. Attention without presence becomes obsession. Presence without intention becomes passivity. Intention without repetition fades. And repetition without emotional guidance turns mechanical. What happens when all 5 steps operate together as one system? Attention becomes stable and selective. Language aligns with the present moment. Communication becomes intentional instead of reactive. Inner guidance informs decisions. Repetition programs the subconscious with coherence. At that point, creation is no longer effortful, it is systemic. In physics, complex systems become predictable when variables are aligned. Your reality functions the same way. When these 5 elements synchronize, resistance drops dramatically. You stop chasing outcomes and start generating conditions. Life responds faster, cleaner, and with less friction, not because you are forcing change, but because the system is finally coherent. This is not belief, it is applied mechanics. The universe is self-communication through energy. At the deepest level, the universe is not something separate from you. It is a continuous act of self-communication. Energy responds to energy. Attention selects experience. Repetition stabilizes patterns. What you call reality is the visible echo of an invisible dialogue already in motion. So here is the final question. What conversation are you participating in every day without realizing it? Your focus filters what enters awareness. Your perception gives it meaning. Your emotional tone programs it. And your repeated inner language tells the system whether to keep delivering the same patterns or to reorganize. Nothing is random. Reality is shaped by where attention rests, refined by perception, programmed by repetition, and expressed through vibration. When you understand this, life stops feeling chaotic. You are no longer trying to control the universe. You are learning how to speak its language fluently. And fluency, in any system, creates mastery. Thank you for staying until the end. If this reflection resonated with you, you are welcome to stay connected. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who might be ready for this perspective. Until the next exploration.